Hey guys, Scott here. A bit of a self-imposed challenge today. I want to see if I can make, record, edit, upload, and make a thumbnail for a video before I get into a killer match. So I have to kind of go a little fast here, but I will definitely try to see if I can do this. I'm pretty sure I can. The discussion I want to talk about here, just a meaningless topic. It doesn't really mean much, but it's something to fill the 15 minutes I have to wait here. It's between Skull Merchant and the Old Legion. What is the worst thing that Behavior has ever intentionally designed? We're not talking about bugs or anything like that. Things they actually sat down and said, yeah, let's ship this and see what happens. The worst things that they've ever made. So on the left side, we have Old Legion. If you're unaware what Old Legion was, basically, it was kind of like Current Legion, except the Legion could down you with their power. There was also Frank's Mixtape, which made it even quicker. But basically, you could swing as many times as you wanted to, and until you hit somebody, it wouldn't stop anything. So you could just repeatedly here, just look at this.
Stop moving. I don't know why you did.
So you could do that shit, and it would also just down you while you were mending, because with Frank's Mixtape, it would take about half your mending bar down, so 2 hits and you go down. Additionally, because Deep Wound worked very different back in the day, it basically, the duration scaled with you being in a chase, not necessarily you running. So that's how it currently works now. It doesn't go down if you're running, but if you're in a chase, you're usually running. It has no relation to the actual chase mechanic, but because it used to be tied to the chase mechanic, which is notoriously extremely buggy, you would have scenarios where a Legion would hit you and then stop chasing you for a second and then moonwalk chase you. So they would basically follow you backwards. They would just sort of listen for where you are, not look towards you so they wouldn't initiate a chase. And you would just bleed out while running away, and there was physically nothing you could do about it. It was the dumbest thing that they've ever made. All the devs, from what I understand, are just embarrassed they even decided to do that. And the worst part was, it was like that for several months. If I recall correctly, I might be wrong on that, but I remember at least a period of several months where we had to deal with that shit. So that's the left side here. On the right side, a much more recent addition to Skull Merchant. I think a lot of people watching this video probably know what old Skull Merchant did, because she's not really that old, so even newer players are probably pretty aware. She was the chess master, the 3-gen champion. She could hold a 3-gen easily for up to an hour until the server timed out. What she did was absolutely miserable. I feel like I don't even need to, I've already made so many videos about her, I don't even have to talk about it. But the newer Skull Merchant is slightly less annoying, but in terms of the actual chase, she's just as bad. She's just as interactive. There are very few things you can do other than crouching to force an M1 so she can't double tap you. It's about it. That's like the only interesting thing you can do against Skull Merchant. Now, playing as her could potentially be more fun, and I understand that. But we're talking about going against Skull Merchant. And she is currently the least interactive killer in the entire game. She basically sets up a drone. You are essentially forced to leave the loop because you're not going to be able to loop it while it's scanning you multiple times. Eventually you get hindered. She has 80 stacks of haste for whatever the fuck reason. She's just going to hit you regardless. So even if it's not necessarily overpowered or too strong, it's still the pinnacle of boring gameplay to go against. And even then, some people still drag out games with Skull Merchant, even though she's not nearly as strong in holding that 3-gen as she used to be. She's still pretty decent at it. So the question here, again, this is the battle of the mid. Not even the mid, this is the battle of the low here. Who was the worst thing that Behavior ever designed? And I actually think it's not so simple. I think the worst thing they ever designed was Old Legion. Old Legion was the worst and dumbest thing Behavior ever made. But I don't think Old Legion was the worst for the game overall due to one specific difference. When Old Legion existed, there was no disconnect penalty. No one had to play against Old Legion because as soon as you saw it, you would just DC immediately and never actually have to play against that. And with Skull Merchant, you are forced to sit there and play against it basically against your will unless you want to eat a ban. So I think that's the main difference why people actually still hate Skull Merchant more than Old Legion. It's because you had a choice to play against Old Legion. I'm not saying it's good that you were disconnect against it, but I'm saying it was so stupid that you were basically expected to disconnect against it. And because of that, you didn't really have to deal with it. It was a problem that existed, but it wasn't a problem you really had to deal with. If you get a Skull Merchant match, you just have to deal with it now. You have to sit there for as long as she wants you to sit there. You have to deal with the uninteractive gameplay. You have to deal with all that shit because you don't have an option anymore. You can probably take 1 or 2 DCs a day, but then that's pretty much it. Then you're just starting to rack up huge DC timers, and it's going to be much, much worse. So in terms of the worst design, it's Old Legion. It was the dumbest thing they've ever made. But in terms of what was worse for the game, I'm gonna have to say it was Skull Merchant, because unlike Legion, you are forced to play against her, and that can be utterly miserable, especially against one that's trying to hold an area. Again, even nerfed, it's still miserable, and then the chases have zero interaction. Yeah, so those are my overall answers. I would say Old Legion is the worst, but worst for the game is Skull Merchant. Anyway, now I probably have like 8 more minutes, so I think I need to go render this, convert it to an MP4, put it in Premiere, and then I need to get some clips and then splice them into there, then make a thumbnail. I should have time. I gotta go now, though. Thanks for watching.